My dad left me a sealed letter to open on my 30th birthday. The contents explained my mother's cold behavior for the past 20 years. I, 30M, never expected my birthday to upend everything I thought I knew about my family. The sealed envelope had been sitting in my desk drawer for 10 years. Dad gave it to me just weeks before the heart attack that took him. Open it when you turn 30, he'd said with a seriousness I rarely saw from him. Not before. When I asked why, he just squeezed my shoulder and said, "Some truths need time." I almost forgot about it until my mother called last night to wish me happy birthday. The conversation was brief and awkward, like most of our interactions over the past 2 decades. She sent a gift card and her usual vague excuse about why she couldn't visit. Something about her book club friends needing her for an emergency. It was always something. After hanging up, I remembered the letter. I dug through my desk until I found it, yellowed with age but still sealed. Dad's handwriting on the front. For my son, on his 30th birthday. I poured myself a whiskey, sat down at the kitchen table, and broke the seal. Son, asterisk if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've kept your promise to wait. I'm sorry I won't be there to see the man you've become. There are things you need to know, things I should have told you face to face, but couldn't find the courage. Asterisk. Asterisk your mother's behavior these past years hasn't been fair to you. The distance, the coldness, the missed birthdays and holidays. You've wondered why she changed after your 10th birthday. Why she pulled away from you and retreated into herself. I know you've blamed yourself. Stop. It was never your fault. Asterisk. Asterisk, what I'm about to tell you will be difficult to hear. I've debated whether knowing the truth is better than living with questions. But you deserve answers. Asterisk. Asterisk, your mother had an affair. It lasted nearly a year before I discovered it. This was just before your 9th birthday. The man was someone we both knew, a colleague from her office. When I confronted her, she ended it immediately and begged me not to leave. For your sake, I stayed. Asterisk. Asterisk, we tried counseling. We tried to rebuild. But something broke between us that never healed. The worst part came later, when her ex-lover reached out with a desperate claim that you might be his biological son. Asterisk. Asterisk, I refused to entertain the idea. You were MY's son in every way that mattered. But your mother couldn't let it go. She insisted on a paternity test when you were 10. The results confirmed what that man suspected. Biologically, he was your father. Asterisk. Asterisk, your mother fell apart. She couldn't look at you without seeing her greatest mistake. She couldn't look at me without seeing her guilt reflected back. And so she began to pull away from both of us, especially you. Not because she didn't love you, but because she couldn't bear the weight of what she'd done. Asterisk. Asterisk, I made her promise never to tell you. Maybe that was wrong of me, but I couldn't stand the thought of you questioning your place in this world, in our family. You are my son. Biology be damned. Asterisk. Asterisk, her distance wasn't rejection, it was shame. Her coldness wasn't hatred, it was fear that you would somehow sense the truth. The strange behavior, the missed events, the emotional walls. All of it was her broken way of coping with a secret too heavy to carry, but too devastating to reveal. Asterisk. Asterisk, I've included contact information for this man at the bottom of this letter. What you do with it is your choice. He's respected my wishes to stay away all these years, though he sent birthday cards I've kept from you. He's not a bad person. Just someone who made a terrible mistake with your mother. Asterisk. Asterisk, I don't know if this knowledge will heal anything between you and her. Maybe it's too late, but I hope understanding might give you some peace. Your mother loves you in her way, though her guilt has made that love almost impossible to express. Asterisk. Asterisk, you are, and always will be, my son. Nothing can change that. Not biology, not this letter, nothing. Asterisk. With all my love. Dad. I read the letter 3 times before the words truly registered. The whiskey burned in my throat as I tried to process what I'd just learned. 20 years of strained birthday calls and Christmas visits where Mom barely looked at me. 20 years of wondering what I'd done wrong. The next morning, bleary-eyed from a sleepless night, I called my mother. When she answered, I said nothing for a long moment. I opened Dad's letter. I finally managed. The sharp intake of breath told me everything. She knew. Can we talk? I asked. In person this time. The cafe was her suggestion. Neutral ground. She looked older than I remembered, more fragile. Her hands trembled as she stirred her untouched tea. Did you know what was in the letter? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Not exactly, she replied, eyes fixed on her cup. But I guessed. Your father and I only kept one secret big enough to warrant that. Why didn't you ever tell me? She looked up then, eyes swimming with tears. Because your father asked me not to. Because I was a coward. Because I couldn't bear to see your face when you realized the truth. And it was easier to just, what? Pretend I didn't exist? I never pretended that, she whispered. I just couldn't figure out how to be around you without the guilt consuming me. Every time I looked at you, I saw my betrayal. I saw the pain I caused your father. It was easier to stay away. Easier for you, I said, anger finally breaking through my shock. Not for me. Not for a kid who thought his mother stopped loving him overnight. She flinched. I deserve that. I've made so many mistakes, and you paid the price for all of them. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, rain began to fall, streaking the windows and blurring the world beyond. Did you ever plan to tell me? I asked. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me hoped you'd never have to know. Another part knew you deserved the truth. She paused. Did he include the contact information? I nodded. Are you going to reach out? I haven't decided yet. She nodded, accepting this uncertainty as her penance. Whatever you choose, I'll understand. But please know one thing. Your father, the man who raised you, who wrote that letter, he loved you completely. Never doubt that. I don't, I said. It's the one thing in all this I'm sure of. It took me 3 days to call the number from the letter. 3 days of questioning everything about my life, my identity, my childhood. The man answered on the second ring. I've been waiting for this call for a long time, he said after I introduced myself. His voice was steady, but I could hear the emotion behind it. We agreed to meet at a diner halfway between our cities. He was there when I arrived, instantly recognizable from the slight resemblance we shared, a resemblance I'd never noticed in either of my parents. I won't call you Dad, I said as I sat down. I already had one. A good one. I understand, he nodded. I'm not here to replace him. I just wanted to know you. The conversation was awkward at first, then strangely easy. He didn't make excuses for the affair. He told me about his life, his regrets, his respect for the man who raised me. He showed me pictures of his family. I had half-siblings I'd never known about. They didn't know about me either. Will you tell them? I asked. Only if you want me to, he said. This is your story to control now. As we parted, he handed me a small box. Birthday cards, he explained. One for every year. Your father returned the first few. After that, I just kept writing them, knowing he'd never give them to you. I took the box but didn't open it. I'm not looking for a new family, I told him. I'm just trying to understand the one I have. I know, he said, but if you ever change your mind, I'll be here. My mother was waiting in my apartment when I returned. She'd used the emergency key I'd given her years ago, but had never expected her to use. I should have called, she said, rising from the couch. But I was afraid you wouldn't answer. Did you love him? I asked, setting down the box of cards. The man I just met? She closed her eyes briefly. Not the way I loved your father. It was complicated. A mistake that spiraled. But you must have loved something about him. I exist because of it. Yes, she admitted. And despite everything, I've never regretted that you exist. Even when I couldn't show it, I've always loved you. You have a strange way of showing it. I know. She stepped closer. When the test results came back, something broke in me. Not because of who your biological father was, but because of what I'd done to the man I truly loved. Your father was devastated, but he never once treated you differently. His capacity to love you remained unchanged, while I couldn't separate my guilt from my love. So you chose to disappear instead. I chose wrong, she said simply. For 20 years, I chose wrong, over and over. I can't change that. But I'd like to try choosing differently now, if you'll let me. I looked at this woman, my mother by birth if not recent behavior, and saw for the first time how much pain she'd been carrying. It didn't excuse her actions, but it helped me understand them. I don't know if we can fix this, I said honestly. But we can try. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. That's more than I deserve, but I'll take it. The months that followed were difficult. After decades of emotional distance, neither of us knew how to bridge the gap. We started with weekly phone calls that were painfully awkward, then gradually less so. She began to share stories about my childhood, the parts before she retreated behind her wall of guilt. I told her about my life now, the parts she'd missed. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt something. Not what we'd lost, that was gone forever, but something new, fragile and honest. I kept in occasional contact with my biological father, though I maintained clear boundaries. The box of birthday cards sat on my shelf, a reminder of the complicated nature of family and truth. On what would have been my father's birthday, my mother and I visited his grave together. She placed flowers while I stood slightly apart, the letter that had changed everything folded in my pocket. He was a better person than either of us deserved, she said quietly. He was, I agreed. But he loved us anyway. As we walked back to the car, she hesitantly took my hand, the first physical contact we'd shared in years. I didn't pull away. Some truths do need time, as my father wrote. But what I've learned since opening that letter is that truth alone isn't enough. It's what we choose to do with it that matters. I'm still figuring out what to do with mine. But for the first time in 20 years, I'm doing it with my mother beside me, both of us finally facing the same reality. And somewhere, I like to think my dad is watching, glad that his final act was to begin healing what had been broken for so long.